Behind a wood sliding door, the whistling and grinding of a great machine brings us slowly, inexorably towards breakfast. Even the keenest eyes of the imagination will not inform you what kind of alchemy is at work there. The chicken is the thing that troubles me most, as she crosses the kitchen on squeaky tin legs, emerges at the serving hatch, cocks her head to one side, takes in the room with a bead of an eye, shrieks out with a voice like grating glass, "Scrambled, poached, boiled, scrambled, poached, boiled."
Now, let us observe the well-furnished breakfast parlour at Plumstead Episcopi, and the comfortable air of all the belongings of the rectory. Comfortable they certainly were, but neither gorgeous nor even grand. Indeed, considering the money that had been spent there, the eye and taste might have been better served. The breakfast service on the table was equally costly and equally plain. The apparent object had been to spend money without obtaining brilliancy or splendour. The urn was of thick and solid silver, as were also the teapot, coffee-pot, cream ewer, and sugar bowl. The cups were old, dim, dragon china worth about £1 apiece, but very despicable in the eyes of the uninitiated. The silver forks were so heavy as to be disagreeable to the hand, and the bread-basket was of a weight really formidable to any but robust persons. The tea consumed was the very best, and the coffee the very blackest, the cream the very thickest. There was dry toast and buttered toast, muffins and crumpets, hot bread and cold bread, white bread and brown bread, homemade bread and baker's bread, wheaten bread and oaten bread, and if there be other breads than these, they were there. There were eggs in napkins and crispy bits of bacon under silver covers, and there were little fishes in a little box, and devilled kidneys frizzling on a hot-water dish, which, by the by, were placed closely contiguous to the plate of the worthy archdeacon himself. Over and above this, on a snow-white napkin spread upon the sideboard, was a huge ham and a huge sirloin, the latter having laden the dinner-table on the previous evening. Such was the ordinary fare at Plumstead Episcopi.
I allow myself the luxury of breakfast. I am no nun, for Christ's sake. Charmed as I am by the sputter of bacon and the eye-opening properties of eggs, it's the coffee that's really sacramental. In the old days, I spread fires and floods and pestilence on my toast. Nowadays, I'm more selective. I only read my horoscope by the quiet glow of the marmalade.
This is my frugal breakfast. Some men want legs of beef and mutton for breakfast. I don't. Give me my peach, my cup of coffee, and my claret. I am content. I don't want them for themselves, but they remind me of the sun. There's nothing solar about legs of beef and mutton. Mere animal satisfaction.
Sometimes the food refuses to be sanctified, and you stand over the table beating your chest and screaming impotent graces for bacon and eggs graphic on the plate, arranged in a greasy cipher. Aware that your body, like a graceful vegetable, refuses to be holy, you stop screaming grace for the eggs and the unsacred bacon. You stop screaming and sit down darkly, hypnotized by 2 fried yellow eggs, by this altogether Canadian breakfast, realizing your appetite is jaded, and the plate is blue, and the food has become an anathema. The bacon has nothing to say for itself. The whole thing is decidedly insane, but you eat the breakfast because it is there to be eaten, and as you eat, you delicate barbarian, you think of pigs and chickens, you think of mammoths and their tons of frozen ancient meat, you think of dark men running through the earth on their naked splendid feat. An American arbutus bunch to be put in a little vase on the royal breakfast table, May the 24th, 1890. Lady, accept a birthday thought. Haply an idle gift and token, right from the scented soil's May utterance here, smelling of countless blessings, prayers, and old-time thanks. A bunch of white and pink arbutus, silent, spicy, shy, from Hudson's, Delaware's, or Potomac's woody banks.
Breakfast is the only meal of the day that I tend to view with the same kind of traditionalized reverence that most people associate with lunch and dinner. I like to eat breakfast alone, and almost never before noon. Anybody with a terminally jangled lifestyle needs at least one psychic anchor every 24 hours, and mine is breakfast. In Hong Kong, Dallas, or at home, and regardless of whether or not I have been to bed, breakfast is a personal ritual that can only be properly observed alone and in a spirit of genuine excess. The food factor should always be massive. 4 Bloody Marys, 2 grapefruits, a pot of coffee, Rangoon crepes, a half-pound of either sausage, bacon, or corned beef hash with diced chilies, a Spanish omelette, or eggs Benedict, a quart of milk, a chopped lemon for random seasoning, and something like a slice of key lime pie, 2 margaritas, and 6 lines of the best cocaine for dessert. All of which should be dealt with outside, in the warmth of a hot sun, and preferably stone naked. A dinner party, coffee, tea, sandwich, or supper, all may be in their way pleasant. But to me, not one of these deserves the praise that welcomer of newborn days a breakfast merits, ever giving cheerful notice we are living another day refreshed by sleep when its festival we keep. Now, although I would not slight those kindly words we use, good night, yet parting words are words of sorrow, and may not vie with sweet good morrow, with which again our friends we greet when in the breakfast-room we meet at the social table round, listening to the lively sound of those notes which never tire, of urn or kettle on the fire. Sleepy Robert never hears or urn or kettle. He appears when all have finished, one by one dropping off and breakfast done. Yet has he too his own pleasure, his breakfast hour's his hour of leisure, and left alone he reads or muses, or else in idle mood he uses to sit and watch the venturous fly where the sugars pile it high, clambering o'er the lumps so white, rocky cliffs of sweet delight.
Brought a vision by mistake. I only ordered coffee and a roll. Breakfast is all you hope for when you wake. The waiter brought a vision by mistake. For there, through slatted shutters, was a lake, oh pure, oh placid, like a seraph's soul. The waiter brought a vision by mistake. I only ordered coffee and a roll.
I promise when I lift your egg from the water with my special spoon, carry it to a cup as if it were a bald man whistling steam to a tune he had just made up. When I take my green-handled egg knife to whip off the top, and inside it is more than yellow, like a laugh about to happen, or butter pushed into light. When you dunk gorgeously in, softly exploding the yolk, like a new idea finding one coloured term for its articulation. When the little promise of the egg contained inside from the moment it was laid is broken by your tongue, then, like love, it is remade. I promise.
You, Athis, who said, Sappho, if you will not get up and let us look at you, I shall never love you again. Get up, unleash your suppleness, lift off your cayenne nightdress, and like a lily leaning into a spring, bathe in the water. Cleus is bringing your best purple frock and the yellow tunic down from the clothes chest. You will have a cloak thrown over you and flowers crowning your hair. Praxinoa, my child, will you please roast nuts for our breakfast? One of the gods is being good to us. Today we are going at last into Mighty Lane, our favourite city with Sappho, loveliest of its women. She will walk among us like a mother with all her daughters around her when she comes home from exile. But you forget everything. Breakfast was Bond's favourite meal of the day. When he was stationed in London, it was always the same. It consisted of very strong coffee from De Bry in New Oxford Street, brewed in an American Chemex, of which he drank 2 large cups, black and without sugar. The single egg, in the dark blue egg cup with a gold ring round the top, was boiled for 3 1/3 minutes. It was a very fresh, speckled brown egg from French Maren's hens owned by some friend of May in the country. Bond disliked white eggs, and faddish as he was in many small things, it amused him to maintain that there was such a thing as a perfect boiled egg. Then there were 2 thick slices of whole wheat toast, a large pat of deep yellow Jersey butter, and 3 squat glass jars containing Tiptree Little Scarlet strawberry jam, Cooper's vintage Oxford marmalade, and Norwegian heather honey from Fortnum's. The coffee pot and the silver on the tray were Queen Anne, and the china was Minton, of the same dark blue and gold and white as the egg cup. Eden of porridge. It impels me to stir, then shapes itself, fills me with greedy rapture. Tuesday's newspaper hangs over the clothing rack in the bathroom. My purpose is in the saucepan on a gas ring in the kitchen. It is not solid, though it is consistent. If it gets hot, it thickens. If it goes cold, it thickens. In my ratio of milk to water to brown sugar, I am steadfast. I scrape and tap my spoon as if one gesture leads to another. Today I will assume untold guises without awareness: pedestrian, daughter, acquaintance, passer-by, redhead. But porridge is porridge. Liquid and heat have brought me to this repeated figure of 8, and it is habit. Breakfast.
Take the cream away, take away the sugar too, let the morning coffee stay as a black and bitter brew. I have gained since yesternight. Shoot the calories on sight. With the rising of the sun, let my nourishment be bran. Pass me, please, a sawdust bun to sustain the inner man. I've put on 1 pound almost, spread no butter on the toast. Let the waffle and the egg bask upon another's plate. Do not offer me, I beg, bacon which produces weight. Still, I have to live till noon. Maybe I could stand a prune. Men, they say, have eaten pie with their breakfasts and survived. Not for such a wretch as I was such revelry contrived. Every day the scales I scan. Doctor's orders. Pass the bran. Breakfast, all must own, is that which man enjoys alone. Peace, perfect peace, is found, they say, only with loved ones far away. And there is naught but solitude that suits the matutinal mood. But there, alas, are tactless folk who choose that hour to jest and joke, whose conversation, brisk and bright, just bearable perhaps at night, fills with intolerable gloom the self-respecting breakfast-room. Thus, as I verily suspect, are many happy households wrecked. So when you break your morning fast, let no one share that first repast. Dean Cope, the eminent divine, was breakfasting at 9:30, perusing, as he munched his toast, the Anglican or Churchman's Post, when in there blew to his distress the bishop of the diocese, most typical in size and girth of the church militant on earth, who shouted, "Cheerio, old chap," and gave the dean a playful slap. Alas, what ill-timed bonhomie! The dean inhaled his kedgeree, and turning with his face all black, he slapped the breezy bishop back. Both lost their tempers there and then, and in a trice these holy men began with most unholy zeal to throw the remnants of the meal at one another. Buttered eggs bespattered aprons, gaitered legs were splashed with bacon, bits of sole fell thick on cassock, alb, and stole. The dining-room became a sea of struggling Christianity, and when at last the luckless dean slipped on a pat of margarine, the bishop took a careful shot and brained him with the mustard pot. A sight to make the angels weep. How scandalized the local sheep who read descriptions of the scene in every parish magazine. The diocese was deeply shocked. The dean, degraded and unfrocked, found refuge in a city slum, lay reader to the deaf and dumb. The bishop lost his see and sank to rural prebendary's rank. No longer in his breezy way he reads the collect for the day, or chants what proper hymns there be for those of riper years at sea. At matins and at evensong his cry goes up, "How long, how long?" His groans are heard through aisle and apse, bewailing his untimely lapse, as he repents him of the crime of being bright at breakfast time.
The Book of Household Management by Mrs. Isabella Beaton, 1861. Having washed herself free from the dust arising from the morning's work, the housemaid collects the breakfast things on her tray, takes the breakfast cloth from the napkin press, and carries them all on the tray into the parlour, arranges them on the table, placing a sufficiency of knives, forks, and salt cellars for the family, and takes the tray back to the pantry, gets a supply of milk, cream, and bread, fills the butter dish, taking care that the salt is plentiful and soft and dry, and that hot plates and egg cups are ready where warm meat or eggs are served, and that butter knife and bread knife are in their places. And now she should give the signal for breakfast, holding herself ready to fill the urn with hot water or hand the kettle and take in the rolls, toast, and other eatables with which the cook supplies her when the breakfast-room bell rings.
They are rattling breakfast plates in basement kitchens, and along the trampled edges of the street I am aware of the damp souls of housemaids sprouting despondently at area gates. The brown waves of fog toss up to me twisted faces from the bottom of the street, and tear from a passer-by with muddy skirts an aimless smile that hovers in the air and vanishes along the level of the roofs. On our backs because the shells were screeching overhead. I bet a rasher to a loaf of bread that Hull United would beat Halifax when Jimmy Stanthorpe played full-back instead of Billy Bradford. Ginger raised his head and cursed, and took the bet, and dropped back dead. We ate our breakfast lying on our backs because the shells were screeching overhead. Melancholy breakfast, blue overhead, blue underneath. The silent egg thinks, and the toaster's electrical ear waits. The stars are in, that cloud is hid. The elements of disbelief are very strong in the morning.
He poured the coffee into the cup. He poured the milk into the cup of coffee. He added the sugar to the coffee and milk. He stirred it with a teaspoon. He drank the coffee and put back the cup without speaking to me. He lit a cigarette. He blew some rings with the smoke. He flicked the ashes into the ashtray. Without speaking to me. Without looking at me, he got up. He put his hat on his head. He put on his raincoat because it was raining. He went out into the rain without a word, without looking at me. And I took my head in my hands, and I wept.
How can she look at me this morning after what I did to her last night? I totally used her. I made no attempt at foreplay. I even forgot her name. She was just a woman to me. Now here she is this morning, looking at me with big eyes as if she expects breakfast in bed, coffee, croissants, and the Sunday papers. And here I am, putting on my coat to fetch them for her. Meditation on a grapefruit. To wake when all is possible before the agitations of the day have gripped you. To come to the kitchen and peel a little basketball for breakfast. To tear the husk like cotton padding, a cloud of oil misting out of its pin-prick pores, clean and sharp as pepper. To ease each pale pink section out of its case so carefully without breaking a single pearly cell. To slide each piece into a cold blue china bowl, the juice pooling, until the whole fruit is divided from its skin, and only then to eat. So sweet a discipline, precisely pointless. A devout involvement of the hands and senses, a pause, a little emptiness. Each year harder to live within, each year harder to live without.
I think the kettle's boiled. Words and music on the theme of breakfast. The readers were Felicity, Kendal and Gerard Murphy, and the programme was produced by Peter Meanwell. Our programme was first broadcast in October 2011, and you can find a full playlist for it on the programme's page of the Radio 3 website. Next week, words and music on the theme of